All right, Jordan. Our very own Dabo Swinney was fined this weekend by the NCAA for his comments on that infamous pass interference call that ultimately ended in a Duke touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and Duke winning the football game this past Saturday against our Clemson Tigers. Your thoughts on the fine and Dabo Swinney's comments? Normally, in this situation, he does not comment on officiating controversies or controversial calls or whatever you want to call them in game. But this one had him fired up, and he was more than willing to offer his thoughts, knowing good and well when he said these comments, he knew he would be fined. But Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's nice to see that that some coaches are still willing to call for accountability with officiating. Listen, my thought on the call itself is, I mean, I've had some time to sit on it and watch it back. Listen, if anything should have been offsetting penalties. Like if you're going to call, I mean, in all honesty, you probably should have called defensive holding and then offensive pass interference and replayed the down. Because I mean, I absolutely think there should have been offensive pass interference. I mean, Avion Terrell gets shoved to the ground. I mean, you got I don't know what, I don't know what what you're seeing there, but I do think Avion was grabby at the beginning of the route, and he had a hold of the player. So I do think it kind of went both ways. If either should have been a no call or offsetting penalties. I don't see how that result that should have resulted in a Clemson defensive pass interference. But that was pretty rough, man. Especially at that spot. I don't know how you call that the way you did, and I'm glad that Dabo was vocal about it. I mean, listen, it's not hurting my pocket, so the fine, I could care less. I couldn't care less. I usually try to be good about saying.
I don't think a $10,000 fine is hurting Dabo's pockets either.
Oh, shoot, no.
Let's be honest.
That's a drop in the bucket. But
yeah,
it is frustrating that this officiating, especially within the ACC, is run the way it is. I mean, it's a problem, a general problem throughout college football, but. I mean, your head of officiating is a guy that was run out of the NFL, for being bad at his job. So I don't understand why, well, I understand why, but it's inexcusable why, the officiating, the state of officiating in this conference and in the college football in general is the way it is. And these guys, these refs aren't held accountable when they get stuff wrong, especially things like that. Listen. You're gonna, some calls are interpretation calls. You could make arguments, one way or another. And you got to go with your gut sometimes. I get all that. I don't hate officials that on pure 100% judgment calls, but in that spot, how you deem that there was no penalty committed by the offense. I'm sorry. No penalty committed by the offense on that play. You're watching it back a million times. I don't know how you see that. That's pretty brutal. Directly, I mean, the game is over on that play. If it stands and then if you replay the down, obviously, Duke maybe still scores. Who knows with how horrible Clemson was on fourth down. But at the end of the day, you basically all but gift wrapped Duke a touchdown at the end of the game. So, and listen, that was not that's not the reason that Clemson lost this game.
No.
There were the million other plays that happened before it were the reason they lost this game. So, I'm not one to usually complain about refs or officiating or anything like that, but. It is frustrating when things like that do go against you because, obviously the result, is probably a little bit different if they get that one right.
Yeah. Look, I think it was a bad call. Um, I agree with you, Jordan. You either have offsetting penalties or you just let it all go and call it a wash. Um, and
It was such a late call too, man.
late,
Like,
that's what I was just going to mention. Like the lateness of the flag is what also like bothers me so much about the call. Like, why'd you throw the flag 3 seconds after the play ended? Like, why did it take you so long to throw the flag? I don't understand. If you saw a clear defensive pass interference, where was the flag? And to your point, there was no defensive pass interference. If anything, you had to call defensive holding earlier in the route before he broke it in to the middle of the field. You call defensive holding there, and then offensive pass interference when he shoves Avion Terrell to the ground. So again, at best, it's offsetting penalties, right? If you want to call it that way, but the lateness of the flag makes it super weird. I like that Dabo Swinney called out the referees. I like that he made his piece known and let them know that he completely disagrees with the call. So I'm all for that, and to take it a level deeper, just to get beyond the call, because yes, did the call affect the game? Absolutely. Like, there's no way you're watching that game that penalty doesn't greatly affect the game. Essentially, you handed Duke a touchdown. Yes, they still had to score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion, which they did, which is on the Clemson's defense. So the referees did not win Duke the game, but it was a very critical penalty and a very critical part of the game. But outside of that, I want to talk about Dabo's comments further that he made today about officiating and the way that it's handled. And I think fans have been talking about this for a very long time. And really, this call against Clemson just gives us an opportunity to kind of address it on this show, right? There's no accountability when it comes to referees in college football. And I 1000% agree with Dabo. That has to change. Like, this whole thing where they send in plays and they get a letter back to the university saying what calls they got wrong and what calls they got right, but then no one's allowed to talk about it. Like, Dabo can't come out, or Clemson can't like hand that document to the media, right, and be like, here's the plays we turned in, and here's the plays the ACC refs got wrong. They would be fined for that. Why? Why do we as the public, why do we as the consumer of college football not get the accountability reports for referees? It makes no sense. It also makes no sense that it's some part-time gig. Like, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, college football. And you're telling me we got part-time referees? What are we doing? Why? And why does every conference have different referees? Why don't we just have college football referees? It makes no sense. Why is there not one governing body for referees, and they're full-time and they're paid year-round? And when they're not calling games, I don't know, study film, practice, however you do that. Like, use AI or whatever to like make them make calls and become better. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's ways where they can get better at their job. I'm not a referee. I don't know, right? But it's just crazy. And there has to be public accountability, as Dabo pointed out. Like, every other aspect of football gets public accountability, except for the referees. And they make some terrible calls. Not just the ones you alluded to, Jordan, that are judgment calls and interpretations of the rules and nuances in the game. Like, we all get that, and we agree to disagree. But when you just like flat out miss a call and nothing happens to you, like, that's crazy. Like, we can't do that. Like, there's got to be something. There's a better way to do this, and college football is not doing it right now.
absolutely, man. And John makes a good point. You know, conferences even has slightly different rules or
Right.
interpretations. Like,
Yeah,
it's not even
so
consistent.
stupid. How we all playing the same sport, but we're not playing the same sport at the same time? Like, it makes no sense. Like, why does the SEC got a set of rules and the ACC's got a set of rules and the Big Ten's got a set of rules and the Big 12? Like, it makes no sense. Like, that literally makes no sense whatsoever. It's just crazy, man. It's crazy that that's even a reality at this point.
And you know, it's just been the status quo for forever, and so people don't, there's just not any people don't have a reason to question it. Well, they do, but they don't. Like, it hasn't been seriously challenged in a long time, and so, you know, I'm over it. You know, it is what it is. Again, you know, Saturday was a brutal it was a brutal way to end a football game, but again, you know, it's one of those things you could have done things a lot differently, and you know, you know, both of those things are true. You know, you have to you got to play better. I mean, you gave up a big play to put Duke in that scoring position to begin with, another coverage bust, and so, but at the same time, you know, despite all of that, you had a chance to win the football game, and that's a play that killed you. So you gotta something's got to change. You got to do things differently. Just as a sport, you have to do things differently, because this ain't it, man. Not with how much money you're generating. It makes no sense why the product is the way it is when it comes to officiating, and the different rules and stipulations and standards that each conference has for it. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, Jordan. A lot has happened, and we are going to get to the Florida State game here shortly. But we got to talk about Dabo and Clemson's future, the future of Clemson football, where we go from here. Just real quickly, the changes that we want to see made.
You know, I wanted to dive in a little bit on what Dabo said, you know, this week. Just kind of some of his comments in terms of, like, when it comes to not just how he not just like coaching hires, but how he runs his program. We were talking about it a little bit before the show. You know, his statement was that, you know, in recent years he feels like he's gone away from his gut and made decisions against, you know, maybe what his gut feeling is. You know, that kind of, you know, it makes me wonder a little bit, because you know, obviously he didn't expound on it or elaborate. You know, what exactly that means, whether it's in reference to coaching hires, is it in reference to you know, recruiting strategy or takes, or you know, is it like other ancillary parts of the program that, you know, he's made decisions one way or the other that he kind of went against his gut, or maybe he let somebody else make the decision. I don't know. But I think it raises a greater question about, you know, how much trust do we have at this point that, you know, the leadership you have, you know, as the head football coach. Like, are you going to be able to make any, you know, are you going to be the one to right the ship? And, you know, do you have that gut feeling anymore? Like, do you have that natural sort of instinct, whatever that's in reference to, that, you know, was able to make him as successful as he was in the past? I mean, like, is that still in him? Is that version of Dabo Swinney still there? I mean, I don't know what you think. It was very cryptic, but, you know, you could, like, my mind was spinning in a lot of different directions, and a lot of just thinking of a lot of different things that he could be referring to. And, you know, what does that mean for, like, you know, if he's going to start going with his gut, what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for the decisions he's about to make, and what's going to be a very pivotal off season for, not just his future, but Clemson's future and the overall health of the program, because these are the type of seasons that can put you in a tailspin, man. I mean, you're already in a tailspin, but it could put you in a deep hole. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen examples at other programs. I mean,
Yeah.
the program you're about to play on Saturday has had a period like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it's really it's an interesting question, Jordan, and it's kind of multi-layered, and there's a lot to think about there. So I don't think there's a clear yes or no answer in all of this, but you can think about it from a couple different angles, right? So if you guys haven't already, I encourage you to go watch Dabo Swinney's interview and kind of draw your own thoughts and your own conclusions from it. These are just kind of me and Jordan's thoughts, and one of the things that really struck me was the thing that you kind of hit on there, where he talked about, I forget what the question was from the reporter, but essentially he answered and said, if he had one critique of himself, it's that he's gotten away from trusting his gut and going with his gut instinct when it came to Clemson's program and how they do things. So part of that is like, at first it's kind of jarring for me. It's like, oh, whoa, I didn't expect him to say something like that, right? And then he was asked to expound upon what he meant by that, and he was like, I'm not going to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously I figured that would be the follow-up answer to that. But in my mind, what it means is that, there's been a whole lot of success, and there's been a lot of good times at Clemson, and sometimes you can get lost in that success, right? You can get lost, and there can be a point where it's kind of like a slow erosion, right, of who you used to be and how you used to run your program and truly how you used to go about things. Because if you hear these coaches talking, Dabo Swinney's not the only one that does it, but you hear them talk every single year. Like, we start over, we start over, we reinstall the program, we blah, 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 right? You say that, but truly and honestly, are you actually starting over every year? No, you're carrying things over. And when it comes to that amount of success for that extended period of time, I think it's natural for certain things to kind of fall off, for certain parts of your program to maybe grow a little complacent and grow a little stale, and you to not pay as close attention as maybe you used to when you were climbing up that mountain, when you were trying to establish that resume that you have now and all those great records that he just spouts off the top of his head like he's got it memorized, right? So I think part of it is, and what I hope, honestly, this is my hope, is that he has done the self-reflection and he has realized that I'm not doing things the same as I used to when I got us here, right? Like, I say that I am, but when I truly look at it and when I'm honest with myself, I'm not trusting the process that got me here. I'm not trusting my instincts on what built Clemson to what it is now. And I hope that's the case. I do think that Dabo Swinney is capable of steering Clemson out of this if he chooses to, if he chooses to make the right decisions. Now, part of that, he mentioned this as well, part of the growth of Clemson and part of Clemson becoming what they are now, or what they were at their height, was he had to make some tough, unpopular decisions. He had to fire some coaches. He had to make other various decisions throughout the program that I'm sure some of us don't know about, some of us don't know about, right? And it's that time again, right? He kept referring back to 2010. And it's that time again. He needs to kind of overhaul. He needs to retool what he's been doing. And we've kind of alluded to it in the past, but it goes all the way from how they meet to their strength and conditioning program, to the way they watch film, to the way they eat, the way they prepare, the way they practice. Certain coaches need to go and be replaced. Certain players need to go and be replaced. In my mind, those are the tough decisions that need to be made. And I think the toughest ones for Dabo that are going to have to be made, I think the obvious one is the coaches, right? But I think that goes without saying. What I think is more difficult, or what will be more difficult, is him looking at the foundation of this program and making some changes, because I think that's truly where some things have slipped. And I'm glad we're going to have a new strength and conditioning coach next year.
Yeah.
No offense. And he's done a lot of great things for Clemson, so I don't want it to come off as disrespectful, but I think that's part of the problem at Clemson. And he lost a lot of good. He lost Smotherman, the get-back coach. You guys remember him? They used to be trying to carole Brent Venables like he was a caged animal on the sidelines. You lost that guy, and I think that was a bigger loss than some people realized. I think he was a bigger part of kind of the mentality inside that weight room and how they used to prepare in there. And you need some of that back, right? So that's a crucial hire this offseason. That is so big. And that's what I kind of drew out of his comments. I hope that he chooses to make the necessary, quote unquote, tough decisions, because it is hard. It's hard when you have that much success and you have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, what I'm doing is not working and I got to change. That's not easy. I mean, these people got a lot of pride, like all of us do, right? We don't like being wrong. We don't like having to admit that we need to change and do things different because what we're doing is not working. That's never easy for anybody. Like, think in your personal life. I'm sure everyone listening has something that they can think of that's like, I did need to change that. And I did, but it was not fun. I didn't like it.
Yep.
Right? So that's my hope for it. And that's kind of what I got out of what he was saying. And I'm still of the belief that Dabo Swinney is the coach for Clemson University and for this program to steer them out of this. I think eventually this will be an anomaly in his career, a season like this. At least I hope, because if it's not, he will be out of here eventually. But that's kind of what I took from it, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're in a situation now where, you know, all of the things that Dabo has professed and talked about in regards to, you know, his philosophy and how he wants his program to be run. I mean, you're in a situation now where it's at a head with, you know, the administration, with with donors, with the board of trustees. You know, I think there's a point now. You're at the point now where, you know, who's going to win out and ultimately, and what what is born out of that, what changes come forth from all of that. And I'm really interested to see how all this plays out. Yeah, again, Dabo is just not one to make changes during the season, but we're going to see. I definitely think we're one way or another next season. Clemson is going to look a lot different than we've seen it. Now, in what ways, we'll have to see. But I do think there's going to be some radical changes in how this program is run, and what things they. And not just how they're run, but the makeup of the of the people, the staff. I think that's where you're at right now.
Yeah,
and I still have hope that Dabo is going to be the one to make those decisions and make those tough decisions. I mean, you said it yourself. Like, he's going to have to make those unpopular decisions that are going to, maybe there's going to be some bridges burned. There's going to be some people that are unhappy with, their station or where they, where they end up after all of this.
Yep.
But the reality is it needs to happen. There's going to be some pretty swift changes. And I'm excited and hopeful. As much as these types of things can hurt in the moment, they, for the health of this program, for the long-term success of this program, you got to do it, man. Because the way you're doing things now, it's been a complete and total failure.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. And I think, another interesting way to think about it is maybe we needed this, right? Clemson has been slowly trending in a downward direction for 3-4 seasons now, right? Maybe we needed a season this bad where you couldn't make excuses, right? You can't excuse your way out of a season like this. It's not, oh, we're close. It's not, oh, this injury or that injury. No. This is bad. This is extremely bad. And this is extremely unacceptable at a place like Clemson that invests as much as Clemson University does into this football program. Dabo Swinney knows that. So in the long run, as much as 2025 sucks, maybe, just maybe, there's no guarantees, but just maybe it'll be the catalyst for some real change at Clemson and to get them trending back in the right direction. I hope that happens. I still believe in Dabo Swinney, but he's got a lot to prove, and he's got a lot of tough changes and tough decisions to make. So we will see. We will see.
We shall.
But none of that's going to happen during this season, Jordan. So let's go ahead and leave that there.